Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Happy Friday. My name is Audrey, and I'm the show host here at OhMyHome. And we are so excited to be going live with you guys to talk about BTO delays today. Before we get started, I do want to introduce our very special guest today, since he has been working with OhMyHome for a long time as a real estate advisor as well as a super agent. He's the perfect person to have with us today. His name is Clarence Liang. He's sitting right here, and not only is he a familiar face with us here at OhMyHome, he may be a familiar face to some of you because he has shown up in previous OhTalks in the past. So we're very excited to welcome Clarence back here today. So Clarence, welcome back to OhTalks.
Thank you, Audrey. Hello, everybody. My name is Clarence. I'm glad to be back on OhTalks. Good to see everybody again. Now, I just want to introduce myself a little bit more again. I've been with OhMyHome for more than 4 years. So over this last 4 years, I've had the opportunity to handle and transact more than 500 over units. Right, so this has also given me the opportunity to know about what's happening all over the world as well as locally and how this has affected the property market here in Singapore.
Absolutely. So you can see why we have Clarence here to talk to us today, to talk more about BTO delays. He's a perfect person to ask. So I wanted to just go through what the main points we're going to be talking about today. The first one really is how this happened and the effects of these delays, and then we're going to talk about potential housing solutions, whether you're looking for a temporary solution or a permanent solution. We hope to bring you some of the options that you can think about. We are going to be taking some questions now. I believe that we do have a question from Mei Lin, which mainly just asked, why are we dealing with these delays? Is it because of COVID? Now, the short answer, I think, is yes. Just to simplify it, the delays really started last year during the circuit breaker. I assume that everybody remembers that time. It was a very hectic time. But that really, I think, started the issue of the delays. How this happened was, let's just talk about the workforce for a second, okay? So if we're talking about the workers who are tasked to build these projects, a lot of them now are costing more money. Salaries are a bit higher because demand is so high. And for a lot of these workers who are not in Singapore, it's been hard to get them into Singapore, whether it's because of border control measures or whatnot. There's so many factors that have been affecting how many people could be working on these projects. And on top of that, when it comes to safety control measures, very few workers are allowed to be at one single place at one time. As you guys know, we're dealing with that in our personal lives. We can only hang out with a certain number of people at work. And I think it's the same for these people building these projects. So very few people are allowed to be on the work sites at a time, which is why things are slowing down. Let's also talk about the issue of supply, right? I think for a lot of materials, key materials like aluminum, copper, steel, prices have really gone up since COVID started. And the shipping as well. The shipping, because a lot of these things need to be imported into Singapore. So because of that, there's been a delay with the shipping time, and also it's just more expensive. So I think we're really dealing with many, many different factors here. But generally speaking, things are just more expensive and it's taking a lot more time. So the short answer, Maylin, which is a great question, is yes, I do think that has had a huge impact on why we're dealing with BTO delays. Do you have anything to add, Clarence?
Yes, I think you're right. I think the short answer to the delay is because of the pandemic, which has resulted in delays in the construction works, the labor. A lot of compassion has to be given to those construction workers as well, because I think sometime last year, a large number of these construction workers were also affected by this illness. So lots of works had to stop. Now, other impacts that these delays that are causing to the buyers of these BTO flats, well, I would say there's quite a bit of an impact, because these are causing buyers to not be able to collect their keys as they have planned.
That's right.
So this may affect their lives, because they may have sold their previous flat already, but they can't move into the new flat, or their family size is growing, like young couples, they're having kids, and the flat where they are staying now, maybe they're staying with their parents, is no longer viable for them to stay together, and they need a place to move into.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this has really been a big problem. I'm sure many people out there would agree with us that COVID has caused. We do have another viewer question from Lexi, I believe. Sorry, Lexi, I have to scroll again. Basically, how much longer will they be delayed for, and where are these BTO flats that are facing delays? So this is a great question, Lexi. Thanks so much for tuning in. I think it's hard to say how long they're going to be delayed for. I'm sure Clarence can chime in on this. But where these flats are, I think they're pretty much island-wide. I do know that Marsiling, Bukit Batok, Bukit Panjang, and West Coast are definitely dealing with delays. But I do believe that this is an island-wide problem. And when that's going to be resolved, I think HDB and the government have said that they're hoping that it will be resolved soon. Is that correct?
Yeah, we hope so. Yeah, and you're right, pretty much island-wide, the constructions, the BTO projects are being delayed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in a recent newspaper article, National Development Minister Mr. Desmond Lee, he mentioned that these BTOs that our buyers are buying, they can expect to get the keys in 4 to 5 years.
Right.
Right. It's contrary to what people are thinking, that some people are saying that it can take up to 6 to 7 years.
That's right.
Mr. Desmond Lee has clarified that it's not. But what we want to know is that what Mr. Lee is saying on this 4 to 5 years to take the keys to the BTO, he is referring to the new BTO flats that are going to be released by HDB.
That's right.
Now, but what the current market, what the problems the current market is facing now are those that those buyers have already booked the BTO flat years ago, and they had been expecting to get their keys either last year or this year. But these flats the delay in these flats are those that are causing problems to the current market now.
Yeah, so I think the issue now really are the existing delays instead of, I think what Desmond Lee, to his point, and he mentioned this during the Parliament Q&As earlier this week. We did cover this on Property Daily a few days ago. But he essentially said, like Clarence mentioned, that now waiting time for BTO flats will be between 4 to 5 years. So whatever you've heard about it being up to 7 years delayed, they're saying that they're maintaining that is not true. It's always going to be 4 to 5 years. But it's interesting to hear that is not, we're not talking about the current delays right now, which is the ones that I think are affecting most people. We do have a question from Ted Chen. Hi, Ted. Thanks so much for joining us. How does someone go about canceling their BTO application if they cannot wait? Now, I think this is a very important question. Thanks so much, Ted, for asking us that. I think this is important for Singaporeans who are considering maybe letting go of their BTO application, since that maybe they're looking for something more immediate. I think Clarence, you mentioned that maybe they're young families or growing families that really need to look for something more immediate. So if you can walk us through how can they cancel their BTO application?
Right. Audrey, I've personally met a lot of customers who've been inquiring about how they can cancel their BTO so that they can probably move into a rental flat or even buy a resale flat so that they can immediately move into their new home.
Yeah.
Now, if anyone wants to cancel the BTO application, they can submit the application through the HDB website via My Request at HDB. Now, depending on the stage of the flat application, the cancellation may involve certain financial forfeiture, and it may also involve some consequential conditions. Yeah.
Okay. So that's really good to know. But I think HDB has come out and actually said that they're going to be taking it on a case-by-case basis. But I'm thinking, Clarence, that because of such extraordinary circumstances, that they would actually really try to listen to your case and try to adjust accordingly. Would you say
Yes,
so?
I believe so. I have indeed also heard some customers who have cancelled their BTO, and HDB has waived their deposit forfeiture.
Yeah, so I think that's very comforting news for people who are considering canceling their BTO applications to look for alternatives. We have a question from Paul CK. Hello, Paul. Paul says, is it a good time to get BTO or should we look for resale now? Okay, So I think, Clarence, you have dealt with customers who have done this. Is it a good time to buy HDB resale now since prices are at an all-time high? So we did cover this again in Property Daily. Resale prices have really shot up, and I think that is in direct effect to these BTO delays. I think a lot of families cannot wait, and they have turned to the resale market to try to find an immediate housing solution. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Audrey. Well, whether to buy a resale flat or to go ahead with the BTO application, it really depends on the needs of the buyers.
Yeah.
Now, when I talk about the needs of the buyers, I'm talking about, like you mentioned, whether they have a place to stay, whether there's an urgent need to move into a new place. These needs usually arise from a growing family, a young couple getting married and want a new home for themselves. So it really depends on the needs of the buyers before they should decide whether they should get a resale flat or a BTO.
Yeah, so definitely something to think about, what's best for your family, I think. We have a question from Mohan. Hello, Mohan. Thanks so much for joining us on Friday during lunch hour. What is the latest update HDB or the government has given us about these delays? So I think we covered a little bit about this. Thanks so much for your question. We talked about Desmond Lee and what he had to say about BTO flats and their waiting times. Just wanted to elaborate that HDB really has been very understanding, I think, and they have come out multiple times throughout the year to say that they understand that these delays have really affected people's life plans and that they're trying really hard to minimize delays. Since they have announced this, they have found new contractors actually to try to speed up some of the construction of some existing BTO flats. And I think they're doing all that they can really to try to speed things up. So thank you so much for your question, Mohan. I think it's really important that they keep us up to date with what's going on. So not only are the people affected by this directly, they know what's going on, but it's good for us all to know and so that we can track the market accordingly. We do have a question from Shannon, I believe. Hi, Shannon. Many have or are considering dropping their BTOs and going to buy a resale HDB instead. Yes, I think that we did talk about that. Prices are at an all-time high. Clarence elaborated that you really should consider what it is that you need. If you need something right away, whether you have a growing family or you just need space of your own, that is definitely a viable option that you can consider. Hannah, hi Hannah. Tell us how you can rent through HDB while you're waiting for BTO. So this is a great question. I think that we'll definitely want to talk about this a little bit more. I do see a question right here. So sorry. Are there other temporary housing options to consider while waiting for my flat to be ready? This is from Jing Jiaxu. Hi, Jing Jia. Thank you so much for this question. This is a great question. I think that we talked about it a little bit. But I think besides renting an HDB, which we will be getting to, thank you, Hannah, for that question, you can also rent, besides renting an HDB, you can stay with family. I know that many people have been doing this. It is the most cost-effective option. And I know that there may be some families who cannot continue doing this. Maybe they need more space. Maybe it's just time to leave the nest, and we totally get that. But that has been an option that many Singaporeans have chosen to go for. And you can also rent privately. You can rent a dual key condo unit or a condo as well. So these are some options, and we talked about some permanent options as well, which is to buy a resale HDB if you need to. Let's go on to another question. So sorry. Okay. I think let's go back to Hannah's question about how to rent through HDB. So I know that the government has tried to, provide schemes maybe to try to to make it easier for them. Is there anything you can tell us about these schemes?
Yes, that's right. Audrey, you mentioned that the government as well as the HDB, they're doing a great job. They're trying their very best to solve these housing problems, housing delays for our buyers, our citizens especially, right? And if this housing are still not ready, they are providing options for us to overcome these housing problems. One of the schemes that HDB offers is this Parenthood Provisional Housing Scheme, what we call the PPHS. Now this scheme is it's a scheme whereby it allows buyers who have booked an uncompleted HDB flat to rent a flat through HDB, right? Just to solve their immediate housing problems. Now, this PPHS has a number of criteria. One of them being one of the buyers must be a Singapore citizen,
Okay,
and at least one of them must be a first-time applicant of the BTO flat.
I see.
Right. And there are also other criteria, like there's an income cap. The buyers cannot own or co-own another HDB flat currently. So lots of criteria to fulfill before one can be eligible to rent this PPHS flat.
So it sounds like this is a scheme that can help many Singaporeans, but I'm sure that that's a scheme that's in hot demand, right? Is there a waiting time?
Yes, it does. It's not easy to get one from what I know. I've heard of our customers who have tried to apply for this PPHS flat. The waiting time can be up to 2 months because,
Oh, wow.
like you said, there's a hot demand for it. And it's not a sure thing that you can get this flat because there's a long waiting list. And assuming that's if you meet all the criteria to apply for one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are the alternatives then? If you either can't wait for a PPHS or you don't qualify, what are the other alternatives that people can think about?
I guess if you don't meet the criteria to get a PPHS flat, or if you can't get one, the alternative is to rent an open market. Like you mentioned earlier, there are HDB flats, condo units, dual key condo units. They are available on the open market for rental.
Okay, that's great. And we definitely do want to talk about these other private options. I think we're out of time. We are trying to wrap up in about a minute and a half. Thank you guys so much for your questions. If we didn't get to them, we will get back to you. I'm sure we'll come back and revisit BTO delays because it's such an important topic to discuss. I do want to, before we go, I do want to talk about next week's OhTalks. We're already excited about that. Next week, we want to focus on the private sector since we talked about HDB today. So maybe next week, I think our two options would be condo living versus landed living. So we'll talk about pros and cons. We'll compare and contrast to see where you guys prefer to stay. If you were thinking about staying in a condo, what are the things to look out for, or staying with landed. So we're very excited about next week. We will have a new guest, and I believe it's your coworker Jason, who would be joining us. We're very excited about that. We want to say thank you to everybody who joined us. Thank you so much for your questions. We really appreciate it. You sharing your time with us today. We hope that this has helped you in terms of getting to understand more about these BTO delays. Remember, you can always follow us on our website at ohmyhome.com, and we're always on social media, Facebook and Instagram. Don't forget, we have Property Daily also to keep you up to speed with all things property here in Singapore. We want to thank everybody so much. Thank you so much for joining us live. Thank you for your amazing questions, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Hey guys, it's Audrey, show host at OhMyHome, and we are so excited to be introducing to you our new weekly live talk show, OhTalks, launching in October. Every week we'll be talking about a new property topic of your choice, but we need your help. Every Monday, we're going to be going on social media to ask you to pick from 2 hot topics. And then on Fridays, we'll go live to answer frequently asked questions, but also whatever you want to know, live on the fly. From new launches to BTO delays to step-by-step guides, come join us starting October. We'll be going live every Friday on Facebook and Instagram. Don't forget to take our polls on Mondays, and we'll see you on Fridays.